So last week we did a talk with Garrett, Kelly, and Linda, who are U.S. Shetland sheep breeders, about the effort that they put into getting the importation started. Next week, I'm really excited about an interview that we're going to be doing with Kate Sharp and Philip Cohen, who are the two Shetland sheep breeders in the UK, who are the owners of the rams that we're going to be using. So that's going to be really interesting. Both of those interviews, though, have words, terms, conversations about things that maybe the average person isn't really familiar with. So I thought this week, Rich and I would just talk a little bit about rams and how the UK deals with rams, and then just some terminology that's used very commonly with Shetland sheep breeders. So we're going to have that conversation now. And then at the end of this, Rich did a ram inspection on one of our rams. So we're going to talk about this whole inspection thing because that's a big deal with the UK breeders. All right, so first to start out, last week Garrett made a comment about island genetics. And a red flag went up with me. I was thinking that maybe many people wouldn't really know what that means. I'm not 100% clear on what it means. So can you talk about what that is?
Island genetics just means genetics that have their origin in the Shetland Islands. So, there's two registering bodies. There's the Flock Book Society, which is in the Shetland Islands, and then there's the Shetland Sheep Society, which is in England, mainland England. So when we say island genetics, we're basically talking about Flock Book sheep that reside on the islands.
Okay, so what would the difference be? Because what Garrett said was that he went and looked at rams all over. He looked at island genetics. He looked at. So can you describe? Is there like a profile of one versus the other, island genetics versus UK genetics?
Well, I think what he was saying is that he basically looked high and far. Mm-hmm. He didn't just focus it on the Shetland Sheep Society. Flocks or sheep that are registered there. He was looking all over the place in England. In the UK rather. So, are there differences between flock book genetics and Shetland Sheep Society? There are some differences. They all follow the Shetland Standard, which was written by the Flock Book Society. The 1927 standard, which is more commonly known. In terms of traits, I've been told by inspectors and judges in the UK that are certified Shetland Sheep Society that the Shetland ewes on the Shetland Islands would have maybe woollier poles, more wool on the poles, maybe woollier tails. My experience, just in some samples I've looked at, they seem to have a little bit longer fleeces in the north, but that's not to say they're out of bounds.
Right. They're not correct, right?
They're correct. They meet the standard. Mm-hmm. Other than that, they're Shetland sheep. There shouldn't be that much difference.
So cool. So good clarification there. The other thing I wanted to talk about was back in 2011, you went to Jefferson, which is the city where the Wisconsin Sheep and Wool Festival is held. And a lot of times we'll refer to it as Jefferson and assume everyone knows what that means. But so you went to that festival, and the reason it's important to Shetland breeders is that's where the big show is for Shetland sheep. Their EGM is their annual general meeting. And they flew in Kate Sharp and Alan Hill from the UK.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about why that was important and maybe some of your main takeaways from that?
Yeah, I think that was the first time that they did that. That was in the early days of the Fine Fleece Association. The reason they did that is because there were several reasons. We were trying to educate people on what the UK Shetland looks like. So the idea was, well, we'll bring in inspectors, judges from the Shetland Sheep Society to actually do a training seminar, and then kind of jumpstart that process of teaching people what the sheep should be looking like. Because up to that point, we'd all pretty much been speculating on what the true Shetland looks like, what it should look like. And I think everyone that was there, they were all, most of us were experienced breeders, but I think we all took something away from it and learned some things that, we need to tweak this or we need to change this to make our sheep look a little more to the standard. I think everybody would agree with that. That was there.
So they made a video. There's a DVD. I think you can actually purchase it from the Fine Fleece Shetland Sheep. And if you can, I'll put a link in the body of this video. And in that video, they actually did what's called a ram inspection. So they do these, or assessment, right? They did a ram assessment there. And the UK is a little bit different. And I'm going to ask Kate about this next week, so we'll get her take on it. But they offer the service of assessing sheep for breeders, I guess. So that was one of the things that you guys were given at that thing. And I have a copy of an assessment form that it looks like you filled in when you were there, maybe, or you tried doing it after you got home. Can you talk a little bit about just what your takeaway was from the assessment form?
Yeah, I mean, the assessment form, I guess the main takeaway is, first of all, there is a form, and it's got specific criteria to follow, and then it's got some guidance on the range for each characteristic. So you tend to think, well, there's a gold standard, and your sheep look like this, or they don't. But that's really not quite the way it is. The way the form is laid out, it says, oh, you can be this to this, and still be within
spectrum or something.
Yeah. The other thing is the 5 criteria. For rams it's 5. For ewes it's 4. That there are disqualifications. They're right at the beginning, and I talk more about this during the inspection that I do on one of our rams. But looking at the tail, looking at the teeth on a pad, are they on the pad? I don't think a lot of people even look at that. Is the wool coarse or soft? Is the udder okay? So those are things you have to look at. If you fail any of them, then you wouldn't proceed with the rest of the inspection.
So those are kind of like table stakes, right?
Yeah, you have to have those, because if you don't, and what's the point of everything else? You might want to know as a breeder and say, oh, okay, I got one of these things. Maybe the teeth aren't correct, but everything else is good. I might want to know, how do I stack up with the other things? So I think there's value in the form because of that. It gives you kind of a structured way to go about evaluating it. And more importantly, I think the intent is that you're trained, you're certified as a judge and or inspector. Everyone that's trained would go through and use the same form. So it would be some consistency.
Like a standardized.
Whether Kate Sharp does the inspection or Alan Hill or whoever else might be doing it, it should be pretty similar, because the training process that they have is the same for everybody.
So it covers, I'm just going to read this, and I'm going to put this up when he does the inspection on the ram. So this one is actually a U form. So we don't have a ram assessment form. We just have this one from, I don't know where it came from. But it's...
Most of it's the same, obviously.
Yeah.
You got the testicles is for the ram, and then you've got the horns.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's another difference in the form.
So then the four finer, 5, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 finer things or traits that you would be checking would be the head, the body, the fleece, and in here the legs. We only pulled a couple of those out for when Rich did the inspection that we're going to show you next. But just...
Yeah,
really
so
cool.
if you get the DVD, if you have it, you know it's long, and it's good, because there were a lot of questions being asked as they were doing this, because none of us had actually gone through this before. So Alan and Kate spend a lot of time explaining each of the line items here, each of the characteristics, and then multiple people had questions. So it's very long, and I didn't want to get into that when we did the inspection of the ram. I just wanted to focus on a few points just to show you how the process works. I didn't want to go through a whole hour-long inspection or whatever it would be.
Okay. So now after you completed that was actually training that you received at that event. So then you're certified, or what did you, it was just a training certificate that you got?
I'm certifiable.
Yeah.
That's for sure. No, it's just a certificate of completion that we completed a training. I'm certainly not certified. I have no qualifications. To be a certified inspector in the UK, in the Shetland Sheep Society, you have to have been a breeder for 5 years, which I would qualify for, as would most of the people that were at the training. But also, you have to inspect at least 25 rams with a certified inspector, which of course I've not done, and most people have not done in the United States.
All right, so with that, I want to talk. One other thing that's going on is related to RAM assessment specifically. Is at this year's Jefferson event in September, an inspector is going to be at that show. Sue Watson, I believe is her name, and she's going to be doing another clinic, just like with the one that Rich got to attend with Kate and Alan.
Yeah, that's one good thing I think the Fine Fleece Association does is every year I think they do this.
Yeah.
They'll bring in a UK judge, at least one, and they'll do the inspections at one of the days. I think it's usually Saturday they do it, but I can't remember. Certainly worth checking out if you're in the area or would like to see that. They actually have experts teaching, running the clinic is useful and interesting.
All right, so we're going to go to the video now. So one thing I just want to mention, the footage is a little bit on the dark side. We took the footage later on in the day. It was almost twilight because it's so hot, and I didn't really want to put the RAM on the stand and make him be evaluated in the heat of the day. So
we should have had footage of you catching the RAM, because that was something.
But so I just, the information is really good, and I tried, there's a lot of information in there, but like I said, the footage is a little on the dark side, so my apologies for that, but I think you'll find it interesting.
So I'm here today with Duncan. He's a yearling ram. I'm not going to go through the entire inspection form that the Shetland Sheep Society uses, but I am going to go through a few areas on it. There's a lot of stuff here and it takes a while to go through the whole thing, so I'll just go through a few key things. First of all, there's 5 key elements that you're going to look for when you're inspecting a ram. Well, I don't have to look at one of the things, his horns, because this one's polled. I don't even have to look at the horns to see whether they're proper, so I won't cover that. I will look at the teeth. One of the things you look for is the teeth are on the pad, not back or forward. You can see the teeth are on the pad here, everything's fine. So he passes that. And the reason we start with that is that's a disqualification. So if the teeth were too far forward or back, you wouldn't finish the rest of the inspection. But you go through all 5 points, see if he's got any of the issues that you would want to disqualify him for. The other thing we're going to look at is testicles. You want to make sure there's 2 of them there. So everything's good there. He passes those 2 things. I'm also going to look at the tail while I'm back here. So a couple of things with the tail. First of all, a Shetland tail needs to be fluke shaped. It needs to have wool on most of it, and then maybe the last inch or so you're going to have hair, and then the tip is going to be hair. So he's got a really good tail. The shape is perfect. It blends in with between his legs here, so it's not like, if you look at different other breeds of sheep, they have long tails or wide tails. They don't blend in, they just kind of dangle behind them. This one blends in nicely. To really look at the fluke shape, you have to flip it over. It should be triangular, fluke shaped. This is perfect. The last thing you want to look for on the tail is the length. Now, if you were a judge, you probably wouldn't be carrying a ruler around, but I am, so generally 4 to 6 inches is what you're looking for. I'll go through the checklist in a minute. I think it says 5 inches, but 4 to 6 is what you're looking for, and he's exactly 5. So his is perfect. Good example of a good Shetland tail. Also, if you look at his back leg, it's not part of the compulsory 5 points that I mentioned, but he has perfect back legs. Okay, so the last fault that I'm looking for is the wool, and the disqualification is the wool coarse. His obviously is not. I know it's like 21 microns or something like that, but I'll feel from front to back. The disqualification isn't is it uniform from front to back. The disqualification is a coarse, but in his case it's the same in the front and the back. It's very fine, very soft, and very crimpy. Those are the things we look for. He didn't have any of the disqualifications, so we would continue with the inspection using the rest of the form. today I'm not going to use the whole form. I'll just use parts of it, but it'll give you an idea. It'll give you an idea what the form is and how it's used. Okay, let's start with the head. The standard says wool on the forehead. It's a question in the form. And the categories are, is it absent, is it present, is it prolific? So ideally you want it to be president. You don't want it to be president, you want it to be present. And just because it's absent, that's not a disqualification. He does not have wool on what we call the poll, the top of the head. So when we say wool, we're talking about the same wool that would be on the rest of the sheep. You know, it's crimpy, curly wool on the top. But you can see, the next question is cheeks. Same questions. He does have some wool on the cheeks, so that it's definitely there. And I've noticed with the polled sheep, a lot of our polled sheep don't have the wool on the poll. It might be just genetics. It may not have anything to do with that they're polled or not polled, just they're happening, that line doesn't have it. But not a disqualification. Though I look at it and he does have a little bit here, but not really substantial amount, and certainly not prolific. Okay, so those are two categories. We'll stick with fleece, and then I'll get into a few other things. So the one thing you look for in the fleece, the first one is it's short, medium, or long. And we're talking about the length of the staple. So short would be considered less than 2 inches. Medium is 2 to 4 inches. And long is greater than 4 inches. Again, none of those are disqualifications. All right, so I would look at his fleece. Now, it's important to know when they were sheared. Our sheep were sheared almost at the end of April, so he doesn't have a full fleece yet. So I would say I'd check the middle box for him. The middle box, of course, is medium, 2 to 4 inches. Next category deals with the density of the fleece. Is it sparse? Is it dense? Is it very thick? So I'm gonna, for the purpose of this discussion, we start talking about density, we're talking about how much wool there is here, basically. Not the length, but how dense it is. So you should feel wool when you squeeze it. Should be a good handful of wool. If it were windy today, which normally it is, of course today it's not, it'll blow the fleece, and it actually parts on a really, what they call an open fleece. And people get confused with that term because the fleece, we've had Shetlands that are like 8 inches, the fleece is 8 inches long, and yet it's still an open fleece because there's a lot of wool there because it's length. But when you actually part it, it comes right apart, you see the skin right away. With this sheep here, you can feel the density when you squeeze it. So I don't know if you can see a good close-up of it. You can part it, but it's a pretty dense fleece. Certainly I wouldn't call it sparse, which is, you know, some of our sheep do have, I wouldn't necessarily call them open, but they're on the sparse side. He's right in the middle, I would say. I've felt some that are denser than this, or what they call thick. But I would say in the middle again for him. Third category for fleece is straight, very crimped, wavy. So these are defined. Let's see, crimped is 8 to 12 inch, or 8 to 12 crimps per inch. That's ideal. Wavy would be less than 5 crimps per inch. So it's more of a bolder crimp. And we already saw the fleece. It's definitely very crimpy. So I would put this in the middle too. At least 12 crimps per inch on him, which is pretty typical for our flock. We tend to have tinier crimp and more of it. So you're going to get more crimps per inch. And then the last fleece category is fine, very fine, coarse. You can easily tell the difference between coarse and fine. When you start splitting feathers between fine and very fine, that's very subjective. Our standard is we follow the Fine Fleece Association standard for fleece. So we know from a micron report that he's, I think, like 21 microns, at least, if not lower. So that would be what we would call super fine, or in this case, this is very fine. So he checked the middle box for that too. So far he's checking all the middle boxes, which is where you want to be when you're doing an inspection. You'd like it right down the middle like that. Not too much or too little of something. Which is interesting. He's not the ram we were going to do today, but we couldn't catch the other one. So, but we do like this one. It's just he's a younger ram. Like I said, right now he's probably 15 months old, 16 at the most, right? All right, so I'm going to look at the switch gears a little bit. We already talked about the tail, so I'll talk about that quick. Is it rat-like? Is it fluke-shaped? Is it broad? So I already showed how fluke-shaped it was. The reason most of these things are in here for a reason. That reason is because of crossbreeding. We don't want to see traits from other breeds of sheep creep into the Shetlands. So you talk about a rat-like tail or a broad tail. Those are traits you might see with a sheep with a long tail. Mm-hmm. So they might be broad from top to bottom, and they're not fluke-shaped. They could be like a rat tail, rat-shaped tail. Those are non-Shetland characteristics that are coming out. You see those. We're fortunate. I think our flock all have pretty good tails right now, if not very good tails. And then the last tail thing is the length. Medium is 5 to 7. Short is less than 5 inches. And long is greater than 7 inches. So I already measured it and it was 5 inches, right? So he would check the medium, which is the 5 to 7 inch. So again, it goes right down the middle with that one. All right, last thing I want to talk about is the body, specifically the chest. So the categories are narrow, medium, or wide. So to measure the chest, and I don't know if we're going to be able to pick this up well, you're going to put your hand in here, and you're just kind of measuring, does it feel wide? Or some Shetlands are very wide, and some are very narrow. And this is a very subjective thing. You know, if you had a UK judge do this, they might disagree with the way I would assess him. I would say medium, but he's on a little bit of narrow side. A lot of our Shetlands, I shouldn't say a lot, some of our Shetlands are on the narrow side. We were kind of breeding for a finer bone at one point, and now we've kind of shifted back to try and get closer to the standard, which would be the medium width. There are Shetlands that are bigger, and that's the other thing, is it has to be in proportion to the size of the sheep. So you might feel this on one sheep and say it's narrow because the sheep itself is bigger and it should be proportionally wider. In this case, he's not full grown yet, so that's why I'm kind of leaning towards medium, even though I said maybe narrow. If he was full grown, I'd probably say narrow. He's in between there, but anyway, it's fine. So those are the things I wanted to cover.
And then we'll just wrap it up with that.
Yeah, so, you know, I think when I attended I think it was 2011, we did the training for the inspections. We had 2 UK judges, Kate Sharp, Alan Hill, did the training. And what stuck with me after that, you never want to look at just one trait and say, oh, I'm going to focus on that. But I was maybe surprised at when they did the width of the chest and the width overall, the shoulders, they put emphasis on that. And I never really had put any emphasis on that before, which is why our sheep got a little bit narrow in the front. So that stuck with me, and it's hard to, it's a hard problem to fix, because if you don't have it in your flock, how are you going to fix it? You got to introduce it somehow. And that's one of the reasons why I think UK genetics are important, is because those rams have been inspected. They're generally expected to be conforming to the standard, kind of your gold standard. So we're hoping to get that out of the AI that we're going to do, and hopefully get, you know, wider in the chest, straighter back legs, wider back legs, just a little, maybe, I don't know if I want to say a bigger frame, because I think the size of our sheep is where I want them to be. Where before, I think our flock tended to be a little bit bigger, and we've tried to breed to shrink them down to what they should be. Again, the goal is we want them to look like a flock in the UK. So if you went over there, you came here, you wouldn't notice a difference in the quality of the sheep. So that's our objective, and that's kind of what I got out of the whole training, I think.
Hi there. Thanks for stopping by to watch this video. I'm Jen Johnson with Whispering Pines Farm. I raise a flock of Shetland sheep for their wool. So if you're a new viewer, welcome and thank you for stopping by to watch. So like every week, this week has been very, very busy, very interesting, a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts. So I'm really excited about stuff that's going on with the farm. So this week, I've spent a lot of time preparing for festivals. So I'm volunteering on a couple of the festival boards to help out with certain aspects of the festival. So in addition to myself getting ready as a vendor, I'm spending time doing that. Spent quite a bit of time on the computer and on the phone with a company up in Canada that makes handling systems called Lakeland. And I'm excited to say I've actually ordered a system. So all the research and all that prep work is done. I spent quite a bit of time listing out all of our processes and trying to understand exactly what equipment I needed. So I got that done and the order is placed. So now it's just waiting for it to come in, and there's a bug on my lens. Sorry about that. So that's pretty cool. And then I also bought another piece of equipment, also Lakeland equipment, but it's used, from a farm south of us. And so that should be getting delivered here in the next couple weeks. So more to come on that also. Pretty excited. The other thing that happened this week was on Wednesday, because today is Friday, and I finally have a chance to sort of recap. Wednesday, we took a truckload of rams to the auction that's near us. It's about an hour's drive south. It's in a town called Springville, and they have an auction every Wednesday. So just, this is very typical for us at this time of year, where the ram lambs have reached an age where we can kind of get a feel for their conformation and their wool quality, and pull out the ones that we're fairly certain won't be breeding quality for either those two reasons, or also color. So for example, we don't really need a Morit ram. We don't have any intention of breeding for Morits anytime soon. So, based on the color, some of the rams were selected to go to the auction. So that took quite a bit of time getting them evaluated, which we did Tuesday night. And then after evaluating them, sorting them without having any handling equipment into littler pens, and then just kind of getting them prepared and ready. And I actually had to work 2 pens because we also brought 2 adult rams to the auction that we're not going to be using. So that took that took a lot of time. So what this video is going to be about is, now all this stuff is done. Finally, Friday is here, and the aftermath of all that activity. I've got panels and pens all over the place. I didn't have time to clean out the barn. I normally do that on Wednesdays. So what I was inspired to do, because last week I kind of shared a little bit of my misgivings about showing the mess and just feeling a little vulnerable there. Had a huge outpouring of comments and emails from people saying that's part of the enjoyment of watching your videos, I guess, which was really nice. So I thought today I would show you the before and after. So I'm just going to run around with the camera and show you some of the things I want to get done, what they look like before I do the work, and then I'll go back through and give you some after footage. So I hope you enjoy this little glimpse into this kind of like a recovery day from all the stuff that happened during the week. And again, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy this. I'd really like to get this stall cleaned out. This is where I've been throwing the bags of grain. All the pastures are depleted now, so I'm using grain as a supplement until I can get them back on the pastures, but would really like to get this cleaned out. And there's my scale, which I will be using here shortly, because when I put the ewes on the new pasture, I do want to deworm a couple of them first. And get this cleared out. So the sheep are on hay now, so the floor is not as wet as if they're on a wet pasture, but this is all got to get scraped up. This is a little bit more than a week's worth of poo and debris. And hey there. I really like to get this cleaned up just because there's a couple reasons. Number one, it's really dusty, and to come in here and work, it's not nice. And I just don't feel like it's sanitary for the girls and their lammies. You can see we did get the coats, and I did ear tag the lambs last week, so that's also done. I'll come over and say hello, Miss Addie. Get out of the breeze. It's a breezy day today. It's nice. A little humid, but it's a nice day. All right, so I got to get this cleared up. And along with that, I'll empty out the water buckets and rinse them and refill them. I also want to scrape up this outside area a little bit. It got the brunt of some weather. We got some rain this week, but I do want to just scrape up the loose bits because that gets built up over time. This section of the barn, the front, north side, gets overgrown. I try to keep it trimmed, but when it gets towards the end of the summer, I get a little less ambitious about it. But would like to get this tidied up, just trimmed up a little bit. There is my mask. I wear this mask now when I'm doing chores because hay is involved, and I'm getting that cough again, so back to the mask. And also I'd love to get some feet trimmed today, so another goal. See if I get that done. So this pasture is where the 3 older guys live. Loki, Jon Snow, and the Morit ram that we had out of Pearl. I still haven't named him. But, I mean, I probably could pull some of these weeds, and there's an enormous thistle in there that I'd like to get rid of, so I'll commit to doing that today. Pulling out a couple weeds and digging up the thistle. So this is what's left of the adult rams. I took a gray catnugget. Oh, I gotta take him off the website, by the way. And Cora's black ram. They went to the market. So these are the 4 that are in this pen, and I've started giving them a little bit of hay just because the pasture is pretty bad. So my goal for this pen today is, number one, I gotta pick up all these panels that I used them to, you know how I kind of capture the rams in this little section here. So I got to put those away. And then I think what I'm going to do for these guys is I'm going to set up a pen so they have access to some of this greenery here to eat. Clear it up a little bit. Maybe I'll run it down along the fence line over the next few days. Give them a chance to have some nice pasture. Right? I'll probably end up still giving them hay, but we'll see. I also should get the tractor out here and dig up this mound because it's getting so built up. This is where I throw the hay, right? But I mean, it keeps on rising and rising with the pack of hay that the fence isn't as tall. So that I should do today because it's nice and soft, but it's going to be soft any time. So maybe I'll get to that next week. They came running over here because I've been giving them hay. So this is Sebastian, who we used last year. This gray catnugget with the skurs. Those aren't full horns. He's skirred ram. The white guy here, this is Harry. We used him a couple times, and depending on how things go, we might use him again this fall. It's very likely I'm only going to do AI and not breed with actual rams this year. We'll see. And then this is Duncan. Very handsome. He's a, what are you? Can't remember. I think he's a spotted fawn cat mugget, but he might just be more. I think he's a cat mugget. He is. I don't know what the heck's wrong with me. And then Sebastian, we still have a very handsome black Yuglet ram. He's still hanging around. He's getting nice and fat. That's Loki, our black ram. We've used him a couple years. Nice. You're a good looking guy, aren't you? A little bit rotten, but. And then there's the Morit ram out of Pearl. Rich just loves this guy. He is actually available for sale, but Morit rams really aren't in demand. And then there's old Jon Snow over there. He kind of stays separate because these guys are really mean to him. And there's that thistle I want to get. And these weeds here that are sticking up, they don't eat them. They just don't like that. So maybe I'll rip out a couple of them before it gets too out of hand. This little shelter's not being used right now, but if I decide to get those other rams and just run them along the side of the fence to clear that up, I might just use this as their shelter. I just drag it with the tractor. You've seen me do that. But that's not going to move today. I'll keep that here until I need it. This is actually really easy to clear out. Most of that weed there doesn't have deep roots. So I'm going to do that. But the grapevines, if anybody has a solution to kill grapevines, I'd love to hear it. Because I hate them. They get up underneath all the wood. And they also make it really difficult to move a fence because they latch onto gates and stuff that I store over here. Maybe I'll try and get to this today. But anybody got any ideas on how to get rid of grapevine? I would love to hear it. So this is kind of this is where most of the rams that we sent to auction were living. And so all these panels got to get picked up. And I think I'm going to use them over with the yearling rams and give them some pasture opportunity. So these are the rams that are still here. They made the cut based on back legs and color. This guy here is Locala's ram, the black ram that was really big. I'm just going to keep him for a while, see how he does. And then we had two nice white rams that are just going to be here for a little bit longer. I'm not in love with their legs, but they really need white genetics, so just see how they do. Maybe they'll straighten out. There's Sojourner's ram. I just really like how he looks. And then we kept Matilda's ram. His fleece is really nice, and he's got really nice back legs. He's spotted. We're not going to use him, but I was thinking I might put him up for sale. He's got little skurs. Oop. Did you get something in your nose, fella? So I'll tidy this up a little bit. And at some point they'll have access to the grass around, but I think I'm going to give the other boys a chance first to clean things up over there. Hey, guy. It's always something to do. Do I say that all the time? I feel like I say that all the time. It's got little button skurs on him. Don't ya? Can't believe these guys were so little not that long ago. I'll try and find the footage of them as they were babies. That'd be fun, right? So it's Sunday afternoon, And I got most of the stuff on my list done, but a lot of stuff I didn't get done. And so I'll take you around and show you all the different things I got accomplished. But yeah, a lot of things happen after you make plans. So Friday, I did get the barn floor cleaned, and then I had my live feed at noon. So those of you that maybe don't know this, I have a Facebook farm page called Whispering Pines Farm. And from that page, every Friday at noon, I do a live broadcast in the barn so you can see the sheep and get an update on the farm. So I do that. So that takes an hour. And then after that, I did get the floor cleaned and I did a bunch of stuff, but I think it might have been like 4 o'clock. Rich came out because it was hot. He's like, Jen, I think you need to take a break. So, and also, then the next day we decided to go to the Elmwood Arts Festival. So Elmwood is a street in Buffalo, and it's a really cool part of the city. The houses are really nice and everything, and older buildings. But they do a nice little festival. It's just one, you go along one street. So we did that for most of the day on Saturday. So that took up some time. And the other thing I did was I had a Suzie Pro Magicraft wheel that had been returned because it got damaged in shipping. And it's been sitting there waiting for me to go replace parts and kind of spruce it back up again. So I did that, and that took some time. And then I put that up for sale on the Magicraft fans group on Ravelry, but now I'm going to go ahead and put it in some other spots too. So that took up a little time. So I figured now we could maybe spend some time with the girls. The floor is already dirty again. But just a little time with the girls. I'm looking at Belva. I did do 2 used feet too that afternoon, Friday afternoon. But I'm looking at Belva right now. She needs her feet done, so let's go take a look. I tried to do your feet, but you wouldn't let me, would ya? Oh, Miss Belva. Such a good girl. Such a good girl. And this is Alice Paul's little lamb. One of my only black lambs. So she's solid black, but she's got spotting on her face and her feet. And this is Adriana. And in the video, I don't know where I'm going to put it. If I'm going to put it before or after this. But we talk about a woolly poll. And Adriana has a very woolly poll. She stands out in that respect. And her cheeks, too, compared with some of these others like Bella. And she's one of my lovies. I got a lot of lovies here. So it's really hot today. So I'm going to have to replace their water. So over there, oh, here comes Miss Perdita. Hi there. She always has to come right over and take charge. Hey, honey. But yeah, I want to show you Mabel and her daughter over there, cooling off, trying to. And this is Yuki and her daughter. I just love it how they lay together. Okay, this set. I did clean this barn. Hi, Ty. You don't really care about getting scritches, so I'm going to leave you alone. Luciana. These two are sisters. Their mom doesn't live here anymore. But Adriana's super friendly. Luciana, she's pretty much like indifferent to me. Not a big fan. Somebody's letting her baby nurse. Aren't you a sweet mama? That's Elizabeth. And her little girl. Getting a nice warm glass of milk. Here's my Ophelia. I'm going to crouch down and then they're all going to maul me. This is my sweetest girl. Okay, I'm going to stand up again. Alice Paul. Beautiful. well, I think I'm gonna do the water right now because I just feel bad. Don't knock it over. It's not something to eat. This is my little lap lamb. She's always underfoot. I saw these guys. Here's Mrs. Hughes' little speckly girl. And of course, Septima. Hello, lovey. I just loosened up some of the minerals, so the babies are all going after that. Go. Good, isn't it? Alright, let's go check out some of the other stuff we got done. Excuse me. Excuse me. Got a couple weeds pulled out, but not a lot, and that thistle's still over there. So I got all the panels picked up. And I did not get that mound worked on, but I will get that done. So the rams were on this little section here for a day. And then today I moved the panel and I brought over that crate. I just did that today. So now, just working on this section and we'll just move them down a little further. I use the toboggan if I have to take the crate a long distance. It just makes it smoother. So Harry's found the shady spot next to my hammock and the other three are in the shelter. And that is Duncan there. He's the one that Rich is going to do the clinic on. There's Duncan that Rich is going to do the clinic on. And I got all this stuff cleared out. So all those panels that are now being used by the yearling rams. Hey guys. Just a nice chilling Sunday, huh? Hey little bunny. Hey little baby bunny. How close do I get to my little bunny? I don't have zoom on this camera. I'm actually laying down right now. like a foot. The camera's like a foot away from it. Oh, you scared me. All right. You're just a little one. I got a lot of bunnies. That's why I always plant my lettuce close to the house. Oh, dear, dear. You're supposed to run away from me. You don't know that yet, do ya? Where's your mom? Okay. Bye-bye.